Welcome back. We're so glad to have you along with us. This is Mental Health Moments, and if you're a subscriber, we're glad to welcome you. And if you're new to our channel, we're glad that you are there. This is a channel that is here for information and inspiration. So, just a quick reminder that any offer of information that we give you is not meant to be a diagnosis of anything in particular, nor is it meant to replace anything that your doctor or therapist has already given to you. Tonight we are going to be discussing triggers, part 2, and I have invited my oldest son Brandon to come along and be with us tonight. Glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
This is a first for us, first for you, so I know it's going to be good for everyone else. So you and I were talking recently after we did the video on triggers. He was offering me a lot of great information one morning while we were riding along together, and everything that you said was so good I felt like we needed to throw it out here. So triggers. Kind of from your perspectives on it, just explain it for everybody. What is a trigger and how does it happen and what do you do?
Well, a trigger, excuse me, a trigger is something that whenever you get around it or you see it, hear it, smell it, it is a response and it leads you to think of something else. So it can be, triggers can come in many different forms. Anger with road rage, that's a very common one that we see a lot of. Whenever people are talking over you and reminding you, that's something that can trigger you as far as anger goes. It doesn't necessarily have to be always with drugs, which is a common misconception. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we can get, devolve into, as we get going. But yeah, there's definitely plenty of things that can encompass a trigger.
You said something that I thought was really interesting. You said that one of our strongest reminders is smell.
Yeah.
So
our sense of smell is the strongest sensory that we have that ties us into memory. So, for instance, you can, be out and about and, pass a store and let's say it smells like vanilla ice cream or, sugar cookies. And that can remind you of whenever you were at your grandmother's house, at Christmas time. Wow. And she was cooking for you. But she died before you were, for instance, 4 years old and you really don't have too much memory of her. But that smell triggers you to, have that memory again of it.
When you said that, it reminded me that I first went to Haiti as a missionary in 1984. And there was a particular smell. You've been there with me, and there's a particular smell that you smell there. And anytime that I'm doing anything and I smell that, it takes me right back to Haiti.
Yeah.
So for people that were asking about this, I had a lot of response from people that were saying, follow up on that and say, what can we do? So if you would, from your perspective,
okay.
What would you say to people who find themselves in a moment where their triggers are starting to be touched, and what do we do?
Okay. Well, as kind of as, I don't want to say cliche as it sounds, that's the proper word. The one day at a time. And necessarily it always isn't about taking it a full day. It can be, just making it through an hour, a minute, or even a second of that. Now, for me, what I've noticed that I had a real bad problem with was whenever I was doing drugs and coming off of it, was spoons. So I really didn't even want to be around them. I didn't want to see them. Even the metallic taste that came with it was just all triggered. It was one of my things. And one of the workarounds that I had during that was I would use a fork and just using little steps at a time to get back there to where you need to be. One of the biggest ones that I'm a fan of that works out with me with my anger is just removing myself from the situation. We like to think that we have something to prove sometimes, or that our ego gets the better of us, and that we need to stand there because we've been taught don't let people pick on you or whatever, and so you feel like you have something to prove, and you really don't. To me, it's proving something bigger to yourself whenever you can walk away from that situation and just remove yourself from it. Because whenever you do that, it just gives you time to breathe. You can either think about the situation from that person's standpoint, which you might not have done prior to that. Road rage is a big one that we have, and you'll be driving to work in the morning, and somebody will either cut you off or speed past you, and we get all upset, but we don't think about, well, maybe they've got a person in the hospital, or they are late to work or late to school, and this is their last chance. That's it. The boss has told me, if you were late one more day, John, you're done. And he's like, man, I gotta provide for my family. I gotta get there. So it's things like that we just don't really think about. And while we're living in that moment, but that's why you need to remove yourself from it, I feel. So that way you can just get like a full grasp of everything that's really going on.
I think it's one of the most important things, triggers, because people that ask me about it, they said, well, how do we deal with them? Well, everybody's triggers, of course, is different. Yours is this and that, and ours is something else. But that's an effective one. Just remove yourself from it. Remove yourself from that situation. Remove yourself from it. If you have something like that that's around you or in your house or whatever, you just eliminate it. Get rid of it and get it out of the environment that you are occupying. The second question that people asked was, how do I heal from that? Like when I'm triggered and I make the mistake, I say what I don't need to say, or I do what I don't need to do. I go where I shouldn't be, and all those kind of things. What do we do then? How do we heal from that?
It kind of reverts exactly back to what I was just saying about stepping away. It's time. Time, again, I hate being cliche, but time heals all wounds. With me, again, whenever I was using, one trigger was I know this is going to be crazy for most people, just waking up in the morning. With what I was using, every morning that I woke up, I had to have, my substance, so that way I could just function throughout the day. And so, whenever I came home from prison this time, you recall that I would spend 30, 45 minutes, out in nature. And that was just switching up a habit that I had, constantly, of where it was, okay, well, I wake up and this is my usual routine. Well, I replaced that, bad routine with a good one.
Yeah, I recall that. It was very effective.
Yeah,
too.
Definitely helps. I love it.
So how about you? When you are dealing with a trigger of some kind, what do you do? If you wouldn't mind, as we often do, we ask you to put it in the comments there. I love reading your comments, and I love getting your personal notes, but I love reading the comments as well as people drop something in there, because it can be helpful. So take a moment, if you would, and just put down your thoughts. When you're triggered, what do you do? What do you think works best for you? Is there something that we didn't mention that you think should be mentioned? This covers everything: gambling, pornography, addictions, angers, all those kinds of destructive emotions. So we want to hear your comments, if you will, put them down there. Is there anything else that you want to say to everybody before we finish out?
Yeah. Actually, the how you were touching on gambling, triggers for everybody come in all different shapes and forms, and I really wasn't done and over with it until I was, done and over with it. Like, as so when it's all said and done, whenever I finally walked away, you're as strong as your mind lets you be. So just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, are you going to sit here and let something control you for the rest of your life? And, I can't go here, or I can't be there. For me, one of the things was the smell of popcorn. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but that was a trigger. And so for me, it's like, am I going to let this ruin my life and never be able to go to a movie theater ever again? Or I'm going to, take it slowly at a time to build up to where I can have some sort of life again.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope that something that we have offered has been helpful. Again, if you have any comments, drop them down there. If you have any suggestions, put them there. I'm very happy to be able to have you here tonight. This scenario probably, I didn't envision that it would ever happen. So I'm glad that it is, and we hope that something that we have said tonight has been helpful to you guys. As we always do, if you see the information here has been helpful, if you wouldn't mind, share it with somebody. Click the share button, let them know that this is something that might be helpful. You might be thinking of somebody right now that somebody could say, man, I need to hear what this young man had to say. So if you wouldn't mind, just take the time to reach into their life and share that with them. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe, like the channel, click the buttons, do the things. And we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for being with us on Mental Health Moments.